You don't take the graveyard shift at a laundromat because you have a thriving social life or a robust savings account. You take it because you are broke, you are desperate, and you are maybe just a little bit stupid. I was all three. My name is David, and I need to put this out there before tonight's shift starts. If I don't make it back to my apartment by 6 a.m., at least someone will know I wasn't just hallucinating. At least someone will know about the rules. It started 3 days ago. I found the listing on Craigslist, buried under endless ads for medical trials and sketchy pyramid schemes. Night shift attendant needed. 24-hour laundromat. $25 per hour. Cash. Immediate start. $25 an hour to watch clothes spin in soapy water? It sounded too good to be true. I figured it was a front for money laundering, pun intended. I didn't care. I needed rent money, and I needed it yesterday. The interview was barely an interview. The place is called Spin Cycle, a squat, brick building on the edge of town where the suburbs bleed into the industrial district. The owner, a nervous little man named Mr. Henderson, didn't ask for a resume. He didn't ask if I had experience. He just looked at the bags under my eyes, checked my pulse to make sure I was alive, and handed me a key. The job is simple, Henderson said, his eyes darting toward the setting sun outside the glass doors. Keep the floors dry. Empty the lint traps. And for the love of God, follow the list. He slapped a laminated sheet of paper onto the folding table in the back office. It was stained with coffee and something that looked suspiciously like dried rust. The list. I asked, picking it up. The protocol, he corrected, his voice dropping to a whisper. You are the attendant. You are the observer. You do not interfere. You do not deviate. Shift starts at midnight. Ends at 6 a.m. Do not leave the building between those hours. Not for a smoke, not for fresh air, not if the building is on fire. He paused, sweating. Actually, if the building is on fire, stay inside. The fire isn't real. It's a distraction. I laughed. I thought he was hazing the new guy. You know, trying to scare the kid. But Henderson didn't laugh. He just grabbed his coat and practically ran out the door as the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving me alone in the fluorescent hum of the spin cycle. The first 2 hours were painfully normal. That's the thing nobody tells you about horror scenarios. They start out so boring. It was just me, the smell of artificial lavender, and the rhythmic thump whoosh of the commercial dryers. A few people came in around midnight. A tired nurse scrubbing scrubs. A guy who looked like he slept in his car. Normal people. They all cleared out by 1:45 a.m. That's when I actually sat down and read the laminated list Henderson had left me. I was expecting instructions on how to unclog a drain or how to reset the coin machine. I was wrong. Here is what the list said. I'm transcribing it exactly as it was written. The night shift protocol. 1. General maintenance, 12 a.m. to 1:59 a.m. Treat this as a normal job. Mop the floors. Clean the glass. If a customer is present, be polite. Do not stare at their hands. Some of them are sensitive about their hands. 2. The transition, 2 a.m. At exactly 2 a.m., the automatic locks on the front doors will disengage. Do not try to lock them manually. They need to get in. If you lock the doors, they will break the glass, and you do not want to deal with the cleanup. Or the anger. 3. Machine number 9. Machine 9 is permanently out of order. There is a sign on it. Do not remove the sign. If you hear banging coming from inside machine 9, ignore it. If you see water filling up inside machine 9, ignore it. If you see a face pressed against the glass of machine 9, screaming for help, ignore it. Do not open the door. The thing inside is not damp, it is not drowning, and it is not your friend. 4. The currency. From 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., customers may pay with currency you do not recognize. They might use gold coins that look Roman. They might use teeth. They might use wet clumps of hair. Accept it all. Place it in the lockbox under the counter. Do not count it. Do not pocket it. If you touch the teeth with your bare skin, wash your hands immediately with bleach. 5. The lady in yellow. At roughly 3:15 a.m., a woman wearing a yellow raincoat may enter. She will have a basket of laundry that smells like swamp water and sulfur. She will ask you for change for a 20. Look at the bill. Asterisk if the bill has a portrait of Andrew Jackson, give her quarters. Asterisk if the bill has a portrait of a man with no eyes and a wide, stretching smile, hand the bill back and tell her the machine is broken. Asterisk if she cries, do not offer her a tissue. If you offer her a tissue, she will take your hand. She will not let go. 6. The lost and found. Do not take anything out of the lost and found bin after 2 a.m. You can put things in, but nothing comes out. If you see a piece of clothing that belongs to you in the bin, a shirt you're currently wearing, or a sock you lost years ago, do not touch it. It is a lure. 7. The mirrors. There is a full-length mirror near the folding tables. Avoid your reflection between 3 a.m. and 3:30 a.m. Your reflection will move independently of you during this time. It is malicious. It will try to trick you into turning around. Keep your eyes on the floor or the machines. 8. The 4 a.m. rush. At 4 a.m., the atmosphere will change. The air will get heavy. You might feel a pressure in your ears, like you are deep underwater. This is normal. Do not hold your breath. Just breathe through your nose and wait for it to pass. 9. Departure. At 6 a.m., the sun will rise. Mr. Henderson will relieve you. Do not speak to him about what you saw. He knows. Talking about it makes them more substantial. Just take your cash from the envelope and leave. I finished reading the list at 1:58 a.m. I sat there on the wobbly plastic stool behind the counter, the laminated paper sweating in my grip. I wanted to leave. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run out the front door, get in my beat-up Honda, and never come back. But I had negative $40 in my bank account, and eviction was looming. Rationalization is a powerful drug. I told myself it was a prank, an elaborate joke to test the new guy's gullibility. Henderson was probably watching on the security cameras, laughing his ass off with his buddies. Machine 9. I looked over at the row of washers. Machine 9 was right in the middle. It was a heavy-duty industrial loader. There was, in fact, a yellow out-of-order sign taped to the glass. The drum inside was dark. I checked my watch. 1:59 a.m. The hum of the laundromat seemed to change pitch. The white noise of the refrigerators and the fluorescent buzz deepened, vibrating in my chest. It felt less like machinery and more like a growl. Then, the digital clock on the wall flickered. The red numbers shifted. 2 a.m. Click. I heard the front door locks disengage. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the empty room. The air grew instantly colder. Not just AC cold. It was the kind of cold that sinks into your bones, damp and heavy. The smell of lavender vanished, replaced by something earthy. Like wet soil. Like a basement that hasn't been opened in 50 years. I stared at the glass doors. Outside, the streetlights were flickering. The parking lot, which had been empty 5 minutes ago, now had a fog rolling across the asphalt. It wasn't natural fog. It moved with purpose, swirling around the pillars outside. Then, the door sensor chimed. Ding dong. The sliding doors hissed open. My heart hammered against my ribs. I gripped the counter, knuckles white, waiting for monster. Waiting for a ghost. Waiting for Henderson to jump out and yell surprise. But nothing entered. Just the wind. And a few dead leaves that skidded across the linoleum floor. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Okay, I whispered to myself. Okay, David. Get a grip. It's just the wind. The sensor is faulty. I looked down at the protocol sheet again. Rule 1. Treat this as a normal job. Right. Normal job, I muttered. I grabbed a spray bottle of Windex and a rag. I decided to clean the glass on the dryers. Keep busy. Don't think about the list. I walked out from behind the counter, my sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. I started wiping down the machine furthest from the door. Spray. Wipe. Spray. Wipe. Thump. I froze. The sound came from behind me. From the row of washers. Thump. Thump. It was a wet, heavy sound. Like a soaking wet towel being slapped against metal. I slowly turned around. The laundromat was empty. The rows of white machines stood like silent sentinels under the flickering lights. Thump. My eyes scanned the numbers. Machine 1. Machine 2. Machine 3. My gaze landed on Machine 9. The out-of-order sign was fluttering slightly, as if a breeze was hitting it. But the air inside was still. Inside the drum of Machine 9, something was moving. I squinted. The glass was dark, tinted. I couldn't see clearly. It looked like clothes? Just a load of dark laundry tumbling around? But the machine was off. The display was dark. There was no power running to it. Thump. Something hit the glass from the inside. It wasn't clothes. It was pale. It pressed against the circular window for a split second before receding back into the shadows of the drum. It looked like a palm. A human palm, white and pruned from being in the water too long. I took a step back, my breath catching in my throat. Rule 3. If you hear banging coming from inside Machine 9, ignore it. Ignore it, I whispered. My voice shook. Just ignore it. I turned my back on Machine 9. I forced myself to walk back to the counter. I sat down. I picked up a magazine I had brought with me. I stared at the words, but I couldn't read them. Thump, thump, thump. The banging got faster, more desperate. I cranked up the volume on the little radio Henderson kept on the counter. Classic rock. Sweet Home Alabama drowned out the noise. I stared straight ahead at the front door. That's when the first customer of the graveyard spin walked in. It was 2:13 a.m. He was tall. Impossibly tall. He had to duck to get under the doorframe. He wore a trench coat that looked like it was made of patched-together leather, but the texture was wrong. Too porous. He walked with a strange, jerky gait, like a marionette being controlled by someone who had never seen a human walk before. He carried a burlap sack over his shoulder. The sack was dripping a dark, viscous fluid that trailed behind him on the freshly mopped floor. He approached the counter. The smell hit me first. Copper and ozone. He didn't have a face. Well, he did, but it was smooth. No eyes. No nose. Just a mouth that looked like a vertical slit stitched shut with black thread. He reached into his coat pocket with a hand that had too many joints in the fingers. He pulled out a handful of coins and dropped them on the counter. They weren't quarters. They were heavy, gold discs, stamped with a symbol that looked like a burning eye. Rule 4. They might use gold coins that look Roman. Accept it all. He stood there, waiting. The vertical slit of a mouth twitched. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. I reached out, my hand trembling, and swept the gold coins into the lockbox. Thank you, I squeaked. Detergent is aisle 1. The tall man tilted his head. A sound came from his throat, a low, clicking noise, like a dolphin echoing in a cave. Then, he turned and shambled toward the washers, dragging his dripping sack behind him. He stopped at Machine 5. He opened the sack. I looked away. I remembered the first rule. Do not stare. I stared at the security monitor instead. I watched in grainy black and white as he shoved the contents of the sack into the washer. It looked like meat. Huge slabs of raw meat. And bone. He closed the door. He didn't put in detergent. He didn't press any buttons. The machine just started. It roared to life, shaking violently as it spun the heavy load. The man stood in front of it, motionless, watching the meat spin. I looked at the clock. 2:20 a.m. 4 hours to go. And then I heard the chime again. Ding dong. The next customer was walking in. And this one was crawling on the ceiling. This is why I'm writing this now, on my phone, hiding under the counter while they load their laundry. If I stop typing, I have to listen to the sounds coming from Machine 9. The banging has stopped, but now it sounds like it's weeping. I just need to make it to 6 a.m. I just need to follow the rules. But I think I made a mistake. I think I accepted a coin from the year 2025. And the customer who gave it to me is still standing in the corner, smiling at me. He hasn't blinked in 20 minutes. The coin was hot. Not warm from a pocket, but hot, like it had been sitting on the manifold of a running engine. I could feel the heat radiating through the thin metal of the lockbox where I dropped it, but the burning sensation lingered on my fingertips. I risked a glance over the laminate countertop. He was still there, the smiling man. He didn't look like the faceless thing washing raw meat, and he didn't look like the thing currently scuttling across the acoustic tiles on the ceiling with the wet suction pop of an octopus. He looked like a stock photo model. He wore a crisp blue polo shirt tucked into beige khakis. His hair was parted with geometric precision, but he was too still. Humans have a microsway, a constant, imperceptible adjustment of balance. This guy was a statue, and his eyes, They were wide, unblinking, fixed directly on the spot where I was crouching. "Is the service always this slow?" he asked. His voice didn't come from his mouth. His lips didn't move. The sound seemed to originate from the air vents, a flat, sin-sized broadcast that vibrated the fillings in my teeth. I squeezed my eyes shut. Rule 1. If a customer is present, be polite. I forced myself to stand up. My knees popped. I grabbed a bottle of bleach, holding it like a holy relic. "I apologize, sir," I said, my voice cracking. "I was just checking the inventory." The smiling man didn't blink. "I gave you a 2025 quarter. It is legal tender." "Yes," I said. "It is." "It is payment for the future," he said. "For the stain that hasn't happened yet." He pointed a manicured finger toward his chest. There was nothing there, just the pristine blue fabric. "When the stain arrives," the voice from the vents buzzed, "do not use bleach. Bleach binds the protein. Use ammonia. And cold water. Only cold water." He turned precisely 90 degrees, marching toward the exit with a stiff, robotic rhythm. He didn't wait for the doors to open. He walked straight through the glass. There was no shattering sound. No shards. He simply passed through the solid pane like a ghost walking through fog, and then he was gone. I let out a ragged sob and slid back down to the floor, my back against the cabinets. The thing on the ceiling, a mass of grey limbs and human hair, was currently inspecting the top of the vending machine, ignoring me. I checked my phone. 2:48 a.m. I had survived the first hour of the real shift, but the adrenaline was crashing, leaving me with the shakes. I needed water. I reached blindly under the counter, groping for the water bottle I'd stashed earlier. My hand brushed against something rough wedged between the underside of the cash register and the plywood shelf. It wasn't my water bottle. It felt like paper. A lot of it. I frowned, pulling it free. It was a ball of crumpled, yellow legal pad paper, wrapped tightly in frantic layers of clear packing tape. It looked like someone had tried to waterproof it, or maybe just preserve it against the damp rot of this place. I looked at the security monitor. The meat washer was still staring at machine 5. The ceiling crawler was motionless. I had a moment. I used my house key to slice through the tape. The paper unfolded with a crisp crinkle that sounded too loud in the quiet room. The handwriting was jagged, scrawled in black Sharpie that had bled through the pages. The letters were erratic, shifting from cursive to print, like the author was writing during an earthquake. To the next poor bastard. If you're reading this, you found my stash. Henderson doesn't check under the register. He's too short, and he's terrified of the dust bunnies. My name was Sarah. By the time you read this, I'm either fired, dead, or I've become part of the lint trap ecosystem. You've seen the laminated list. The protocol. It is a lie. Well, not a lie, exactly. But it's not for your protection. It's for theirs. It's an owner's manual for keeping the livestock calm. You are the livestock. My stomach dropped. I held the paper closer to the dim light of the register screen. I worked here for 6 months. I figured out the patterns. I figured out what Henderson actually is. Listen to me closely. Correction to Rule 2. The locks don't open to let them in. The locks open to let the pressure out. If you manually lock the doors, the building doesn't break, it implodes. It breathes, David, or whatever your name is. The laundromat breathes. Correction to Rule 5. The lady in yellow. Henderson says to look at the bill. Do not look at the bill. The portrait on the bill is a mimetic trigger. If you see the eyeless man, he doesn't just scare you, he marks you. Once you see him, you start seeing him everywhere. In your review mirror, in your shower drain, in your soup. Instead, smell the bill. If it smells like mold, give quarters. If it smells like burnt hair, give her the laundry detergent from behind the counter, the blue bottle with no label. She doesn't want change. She wants the solvent. Correction to Rule 9. Henderson knows? Yeah, he knows. Because he's collecting. Notice how he pays cash. Notice how he never touches the money you put in the lockbox. The currency isn't money. It's tribute. And if the box is light at 6 a.m., he takes the difference out of you. I'm writing this because I messed up. I looked in the mirror at 3:05 a.m. My reflection didn't just move independently. It winked at me, and then it walked out of the frame. I don't have a reflection anymore. And I think the thing that walked out of the mirror is currently sitting in my car, waiting for my shift to end so it can go home to my life. If you want to survive, there is only one real rule. Do not let Machine 9 finish its cycle. If the buzzer rings on Machine 9, the door opens. If the door opens, the barrier falls. Keep it unplugged. If it plugs itself in, cut the cord. If the cord regrows, throw a brick at the breaker box. Good luck. You're going to need. The writing trailed off into a frantic line of ink that shot off the page, as if Sarah had been yanked away mid-sentence. I stared at the note. My hands were trembling so hard the paper rattled. Do not look at the bill. I looked up at the laminated sheet Henderson had left. Rule 5. Look at the bill. Who do I trust? The nervous little man who wouldn't stay past sunset, or Sarah, the girl who lost her reflection? A sharp, piercing screech cut through the air. I jumped, banging my head on the underside of the counter. The sound was coming from the sliding doors. I scrambled up. Standing on the welcome mat was a woman. She was petite, huddled inside a bright, canary yellow raincoat that was 3 sizes too big. The hood was pulled up, casting her face in deep shadow. Rain dripped from the coat, pooling around her boots, even though it hadn't rained outside in 2 weeks. In her arms, she cradled a laundry basket. A thick, greenish fog rolled off the clothes inside, smelling violently of sulfur and stagnant pond water. I checked the clock. 3:15 a.m. She was right on time. She walked to the counter. The movement was fluid, gliding rather than stepping. Up close, the smell was overpowering. It made my eyes water and my throat constrict. "Change," she whispered. Her voice sounded wet, like bubbles popping in thick mud. "Change for a 20. A pale hand emerged from the oversized yellow sleeve. The fingers were long, delicate, and covered in what looked like algae. She held out a crisp $20 bill. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Henderson's rule: look at the bill. Check for the eyeless man. Sarah's note: do not look at the bill. Smell it. The smiling man's warning about the stain echoed in my head. Bleach binds the protein. Everything was contradictory. Everything was a trap. The lady in yellow stood there, her hand unwavering. The bill fluttered slightly in the air conditioning. I looked at the bill. I couldn't help it. It was reflex. I focused on the center of the note. It was Andrew Jackson. I let out a breath, my knees nearly buckling with relief. It was just a normal 20. Henderson was right. Sarah was crazy. Or maybe Sarah was just messing with me. "Quarters," I croaked, coming right up. I reached for the roll of quarters in the drawer. Then, the bill changed. It didn't morph or shift. It just was different, like a video glitch. One frame it was Jackson, the next frame it was something else. The portrait was a man, but his face was stretched, the skin pulled taut over a skull that was too wide. Where his eyes should have been, there were only smooth patches of skin. And his mouth was a wide, jagged grin that stretched past his ears, filled with rows of needle-thin teeth. He wasn't just printed on the paper. He was looking at me. The eyeless sockets were following me. Once you see him, he marks you. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in my chest. I had looked, and I had seen him. The lady in yellow tilted her head. The shadow of her hood shifted. I saw a glimpse of a chin. It was grey, and the skin was peeling. "Is the machine broken?" she asked. The prompt from the laminated list flashed in my mind. If the bill has a portrait of a man with no eyes, tell her the machine is broken. But Sarah's note screamed in my memory. She doesn't want change. She wants the solvent. The lady's hand twitched. She was reaching for me. If she cries, do not offer her a tissue. She will take your hand. She will not let go. She wasn't crying yet, but the air around her was getting colder. The smell of sulfur was intensifying, burning my nostrils. "The machine," I stammered, my brain firing wildly. I looked at the quarters in my hand. Then I looked at the blue bottle of unlabeled solvent sitting on the shelf behind me, the one Henderson used for gum removal. I grabbed the bottle. "The machine is broken," I said, my voice shaking violently. "But we have a special on detergent." I slammed the blue bottle onto the counter and pushed it toward her. The lady in yellow froze. For 10 agonizing seconds, the only sound was the thump-thump-thump of the meat washer's load spinning in machine 5. Then, a low sound emerged from the hood. A giggle. It sounded like water draining from a tub. "Good," she whispered. "The stains are stubborn." She dropped the bill on the counter. She didn't take the quarters. She grabbed the blue bottle with terrifying speed, her algae-slicked fingers wrapping around it. She turned and glided away, heading toward the back row of dryers. I stared at the bill she had left. It was back to Andrew Jackson. But now, Jackson was weeping. Tiny, ink-drawn tears were streaming down his face. I didn't touch it. I grabbed a pair of tongs from the lost and found bin, careful not to touch the clothes, and picked up the bill, dropping it into the lockbox. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped the tongs. I collapsed onto the stool. Sarah was right. Or partially right. The protocol was a half-truth. That's when I heard it. A click, a hum, and then the sound of water rushing. I spun around. Machine 9. The out-of-order sign had fallen off. It lay face down on the linoleum. The display on machine 9 was lit up. Bright red lead numbers counted down. 59:00. The drum was filling with water. Dark, murky water. Do not let machine 9 finish its cycle. I scrambled out from behind the counter. I ran toward the breaker box on the far wall, past the lady in yellow who was pouring the blue solvent onto a pile of what looked like human skin, past the meat washer. I reached the breaker panel. It was padlocked. "Of course," I hissed. "Of course it is." I looked back at machine 9. The water was churning, and inside the vortex, I saw them. Faces, dozens of them, pressed against the glass, spinning in the dark water. Their mouths were open in silent screams, and right in the center, blinking past the glass, was a face I recognized. It was Mr. Henderson. But Mr. Henderson was supposed to relieve me at 6 a.m. If he was in the machine, who was coming at sunrise? I ran back to the counter, my sneakers squeaking on the wet floor. I needed a weapon. I needed a plan. I grabbed the crumpled note again, smoothing it out, desperate for more instructions. There was writing on the back. I hadn't seen it before. P.S. If machine 9 starts, you have one option. You have to feed it something of equal value to the soul it's trying to birth. You have to give it a memory. I stared at the spinning drum. The banging started again. Thump, thump. It was synchronizing with my heartbeat. I looked at the lockbox. The 2025 coin. Payment for the future. If I gave the machine the future, would it stop trying to eat the present? I grabbed the key to the lockbox. The smiling man was gone, but I could feel eyes on me. I looked up. The ceiling tiles above the counter had been removed. The crawler was hanging directly above me. Its face was upside down, inches from my own. It had human eyes, but they were upside down in its sockets. "Do not," it hissed, drool dripping onto the counter, "interrupt the cycle." I froze, the key in my hand. The laundromat was waking up, and I had 3 hours left. The drool was thick and grey, landing on the laminate counter with the consistency of egg whites. I didn't wipe it away. I didn't move. My hand was frozen halfway to the lockbox key, my eyes locked on the inverted face of the ceiling crawler. Its eyes, human, brown, bloodshot, were blinking in reverse, the eyelids snapping open rather than shutting. It hung there by limbs I couldn't quite see, obscured by the shadows between the missing ceiling tiles, defying gravity with a sickening, wet suction. The cycle, it clicked, the voice sounding like grinding molars, cleansers. Thump, thump, thump. Behind me, machine 9 was violently shaking. The water inside was black now, swirling with such force that the heavy industrial washer was walking inch by inch across the floor. I could hear the muffled, gurgling screams of Mr. Henderson through the glass. Do not let machine 9 finish its cycle. Sarah's note burned in my mind. "I'm not interrupting," I lied. My voice was steady, surprising me. "I'm authorizing. I need the key to authorize the high-speed spin." The crawler tilted its head, a jerky motion that cracked like dry wood. "Authorize." "Protocol," I said, pointing blindly at the laminated list I'd memorized but wasn't looking at. "Administrative override. If I don't turn the key, the machine stops. If the machine stops, the cycle breaks. You want the cycle to finish, right?" It was a gamble. A stupid, desperate gamble based on the logic of bureaucracy. Monsters in these places always seemed bound by arbitrary rules. I prayed this one was a stickler for paperwork. The crawler hesitated. A long, grey tongue flicked out, tasting the air. Authorize, it hissed. It pulled back, retracting slightly into the ceiling cavity. Proceed. I didn't wait. I snatched the key, jammed it into the lockbox, and twisted. The lid popped open. The smell of burnt hair and ozone wafted out. Inside lay the gold Roman coins, a few bloody molars, and the 2025 quarter. I grabbed the 2025 quarter. It was still searing hot. It singed my fingerprints, but the pain grounded me. Payment for the future. I turned and sprinted toward machine 9. The washer was howling now. The display read 0:15. 15 seconds until the cycle ended. 15 seconds until the door opened and whatever Henderson had become spilled out into the world. The out-of-order sign was on the floor, soaked in soapy water. I skidded to a halt in front of the machine. I looked at the coin slot. It was welded shut with rust. I looked at the soap dispenser drawer on top. Feed it a memory. I looked at the coin in my blistering hand. This wasn't a memory. This was a promise of a time that hadn't happened yet. If I fed it the future, would it cancel the past? Or would it just make the machine angry? 0:10. Henderson's face was pressed against the glass, flattened and distorted. His mouth was open wide, screaming bubbles. Behind him, other faces, shadowy, indistinct, were swirling in the black vortex, clawing at his back. I couldn't use the coin. Sarah was specific. Equal value to the soul it's trying to birth. I shoved the coin into my pocket, ignoring the burn. I grabbed my wallet. I ripped it open. My driver's license? No. Credit cards? Useless. Then I saw it, tucked behind my maxed out visa. A Polaroid. It was small, faded, the edges bent. Me and my little brother, 10 years ago, standing in front of the Grand Canyon. Before he got sick. Before the bills piled up. Before I ended up working the graveyard shift at a haunted laundromat to pay for a tombstone. It was the only thing I had left of him. It was the heaviest thing I carried. 0:05. I'm sorry, Mikey, I whispered. I yanked the soap dispenser drawer open. It was filled with black slime. I dropped the photo in. I slammed the drawer shut. 0:03. 0:02. 0:01. The machine stopped dead. No spin down. No deceleration. The violent shaking ceased instantly. The roar cut off, leaving a ringing silence in my ears. The water inside the drum didn't drain. It just faded. The black liquid turned to grey, then to clear, then to air. The faces dissolved like smoke. Henderson's screaming visage lingered for a split second, looking at me with an expression of pure, terrified gratitude, before he, too, evaporated. The red LED display flickered. The numbers changed from 0:012. Then, the yellow out-of-order sign on the floor lifted into the air. I watched, frozen, as an invisible hand smoothed the wet paper, carried it up, and taped it back onto the glass with impossible precision. Click. The machine powered down. It was just a cold, dark washer again. I slumped against the neighboring machine, my legs turning to jelly. I gasped for air, clutching my chest. The photo was gone. The memory of that day at the Grand Canyon felt fuzzy, like looking at a smudge on a pair of glasses. I knew it happened, but I couldn't feel the heat of the sun anymore. I couldn't remember the sound of Mikey's laugh. Transaction accepted, a voice whispered. I snapped my head up. The ceiling crawler was gone. The tiles were back in place. But I wasn't alone. Standing by the folding tables was a new figure. I checked my watch. 3:33 a.m. He was short, round, and wore a tracksuit that was popular in the late 80s. Teal and purple windbreaker material that swished when he moved. He had a fanny pack strapped around his waist. He looked painfully, aggressively normal, except for one detail. He had no face. Not like the faceless man with the meat. That guy had smooth skin. This guy, his face was just a blur. Like a witness in a crime documentary whose identity was being protected. It was a pixelated mosaic of flesh tones that shifted constantly. He didn't have a laundry basket. He didn't have a bag. He stood with his hands in his pockets, the pixelated blur directed at the vending machine in the corner. The coinless customer. I scrambled to my feet, wiping the floor slime off my jeans. Rule 1. Treat this as a normal job. Can I help you, sir? I called out, my voice raspy. The man didn't turn. He just stared at the vending machine, specifically at the coil holding the bag of Doritos in row E4. He pointed a finger at the glass. Tap, tap. He wanted the chips. I hesitated. The machine takes quarters, sir, or dollar bills. He stood motionless. The static noise of his face seemed to get louder, a low frequency buzz that made my teeth ache. He patted his pockets. He opened his fanny pack. It was empty. It was a bottomless void of black fabric. He had no money. He turned to me. The pixels shifted, forming a vague approximation of a frown. He pointed at the machine again, then at me. He wants me to buy it for him. I walked over, keeping a safe distance. I can't just give away inventory, sir. It's against policy. The air pressure in the room dropped. My ears popped. The lights overhead flickered violently. The man reached into his pocket again. He pulled out his hand. It was empty. He mimed dropping a coin into an invisible slot in the air. Clink. I heard the sound of a coin hitting metal, even though nothing fell. He pointed at the lockbox under the counter. I understood. He wasn't paying me. He was paying the house. And his currency wasn't physical. I ran back to the counter and checked the lockbox. Sitting on top of the pile of teeth and gold was a new object. It was a button. A simple, red plastic button, like something popped off a coat. But it was vibrating. I picked it up. It felt heavy, dense like lead. I looked back at the customer. He was waiting. Okay, I muttered. Okay. I fished 2 quarters out of my own pocket, my actual, real-world money, and walked to the vending machine. I slotted them in. Clunk clunk. I pressed E4. The coil turned. The Doritos fell. The coinless customer clapped his hands together, a sound like 2 wet steaks slapping, and retrieved the bag. He didn't open it. He simply held it against his chest, hugging it like a teddy bear. He walked over to the row of orange plastic chairs, sat down, and placed the bag of chips on the seat next to him. And then he waited. He didn't move. He didn't leave. He just sat there, the pixelated blur of his face cycling through expressions: anger, sorrow, joy, fear, every 3 seconds. I retreated behind the counter. I checked the time. 3:58 a.m. The atmosphere in the room shifted. The smell of sulfur and ozone faded, replaced by something heavier. Something thick and metallic, like the taste of blood in your mouth after a punch. The coinless customer stopped shifting his expressions. His face settled on a static gray. He sat up straighter. Rule 8. The 4 a.m. rush. At 4 a.m., the atmosphere will change. The air will get heavy. You might feel a pressure in your ears. I looked at the customer. He wasn't a customer. He was a spectator. He had bought his snack, taken his seat, and now he was waiting for the main event. I gripped the counter. I felt the pressure building in my sinuses. It felt like I was descending in a plane, dropping thousands of feet in seconds. The fluorescent lights hummed, rising in pitch until they were screaming. Then, silence. Absolute, heavy silence. The digital clock clicked. 4 a.m. The front doors didn't open. The bell didn't chime. Instead, the lights went out. All of them. Pitch black. I fumbled for my phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating dust motes that were hanging suspended in the air, frozen in time. I swept the light across the room. The machines were gone. I blinked. I rubbed my eyes. The machines weren't gone. They were receded. The walls of the laundromat had expanded. The room was now the size of a football field, stretching out into an infinite dark void. The rows of washers and dryers continued endlessly into the gloom, hundreds of them, thousands of them. And they were all running. A synchronized, rhythmic thrumming started, low at first, then building. Thump whoosh. Thump whoosh. Thousands of machines spinning in unison. I shined the light on the orange chairs. The coinless customer was still there. But he wasn't alone anymore. Every chair in the endless rows stretching into the dark was occupied. Shadows, silhouettes, things with too many limbs, things with glowing eyes, things that looked like heaps of wet laundry given form. They sat in the dark, watching the spinning drums, and they were all turning their heads to look at me. I ducked below the counter, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. I brought up the text file on my phone. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely type. The 4 a.m. rush isn't customers coming in, I typed, my thumbs slipping on the glass. It's the walls coming down. A sound echoed from the infinite dark. A voice, amplified as if by a stadium PA system. Attendant to the floor. Clean up on aisle 402. Aisle 402. There were only 2 aisles. I peeked over the counter. In the distance, about 100 yards away in the expanded void, a massive dryer, the size of a cement truck, had burst open. Something was crawling out of it. Something on fire. The coinless customer stood up. He pointed a pixelated finger at the burning thing, then turned and pointed at me. He wanted me to handle it. I grabbed the fire extinguisher from the wall. I grabbed the spray bottle of gum remover. I grabbed the 2025 coin, which was pulsing in my pocket like a second heartbeat. Just a normal job, I whispered to myself, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. Just mopping floors. I stepped out from behind the counter and began the long walk into the dark. I have 2 hours left. If the sun doesn't rise at 6, or if the walls don't come back, tell my brother I'm sorry I forgot the Grand Canyon. And whatever you do, if you find a laundromat called Spin Cycle, keep driving. Wait. The coinless customer is following me. He's opened the bag of chips. He's offering me one. Rule 1, be polite. I'm going to take the chip. Wish me luck. I took the chip. It felt brittle between my fingers, dusted with an orange powder that glowed faintly in the flashlight beam. The coinless customer watched me, his pixelated face shifting rapidly, a blurry smile, a jagged grimace, a static noise of neutrality. I put it in my mouth. It didn't taste like cheese. It tasted like snow. It tasted like the feeling of your foot falling asleep, a distinct pins and needles sensation that popped on my tongue. Thanks, I whispered. The customer nodded once, the motion creating a trail of digital artifacts in the air. He turned and began to walk deeper into the dark, his teal windbreaker swishing. I tightened my grip on the fire extinguisher and followed. We passed aisle 10, aisle 20, aisle 50. The physics of the 4 a.m. rush were sickening. The distance between aisles shouldn't have been more than a few feet, but out here in the expanded void, each row of machines felt miles apart. The ceiling was gone, replaced by a heavy, suffocating blackness that felt like it was pressing down on the top of my skull. And the noise. You know that sound when you drive on the highway with one window cracked? That rhythmic, thrumming pressure? Imagine that, but multiplied by 1,000. Thump whoosh. Thump whoosh. It wasn't just mechanical. It was biological. The machines sounded like they were breathing. As we passed aisle 100, the machines changed. They weren't the standard white industrial washers anymore. They were older. Some were made of rusted iron with hand cranks that spun on their own. Some looked like giant wooden barrels bound in copper, leaking a black fluid that smelled like vinegar. Don't look left, I muttered to myself. Don't look right. But it's hard not to look. The human eye is drawn to movement. It's a survival instinct. When something spins in your periphery, your brain screams predator or danger and forces you to check. I made the mistake at aisle 115. My flashlight beam swung to the left, catching the glass door of a machine marked Heavy Duty, Regret Cycle. The drum was spinning so fast it was a blur, but the glass magnified the contents. It wasn't clothes. It was a room. A perfect, miniature replica of a hospital room. I saw a bed. I saw a figure lying in it. I saw a younger version of myself sitting in the chair next to the bed, holding a hand that was too thin. I stumbled, my breath hitching. Mikey. The centrifugal force of the spin slammed the miniature version of me against the wall of the hospital room. I watched, horrified, as the room tumbled. The bed overturned. My brother. No, I choked out, stepping toward the glass. Stop it. You're hurting him. I reached for the door handle. A hand clamped onto my shoulder. It wasn't a hand. It felt like a block of ice wrapped in sandpaper. I snapped my head around. The coinless customer was right there. His face was a swirl of angry red and black pixels. He shook his head violently, the static buzz from his face rising to a shriek. He pointed forward, toward the fire. He was right. It wasn't real. Or if it was real, it was a trap. The machine was washing my grief, spinning it out to keep me docile. Right, I said, backing away from the regret cycle. Eyes front. Aisle 402. We kept walking. The air grew hotter. The smell of ozone and sulfur returned, mixed with something sweeter, like burning sugar. We reached aisle 400. The floor here wasn't linoleum anymore. It was ash. Grey, flaky ash that crunched under my sneakers. The machines here were massive, 2 stories tall, forged from black steel, vibrating with enough power to shake my teeth. And then we saw it. Aisle 402. It wasn't a dryer on fire. The dryer was the fire. Machine 402 didn't have a glass door. It had a grate. And behind the grate, a vortex of violet flame was roaring, spinning in a perfect, mesmerizing spiral. But the fire wasn't the problem. The problem was the thing trying to keep the door closed. A man was braced against the grate, his back to the heat, his boots sliding in the ash. He wore a Spin Cycle uniform, but it was tattered, scorched. His skin was blistered red. "Help!" he screamed, his voice distorted, echoing as if from a great distance. The latch is melting." I ran forward, the extinguisher heavy in my hands. "I've got you." I aimed the nozzle at the grate and squeezed. Nothing came out. I squeezed again. The gauge read full, but the nozzle was jammed. "It won't work," the man screamed. He turned his head, and I froze. He had my face. It wasn't a mirror image. It was me. A version of me that had been working here for years. His hair was graying. His eyes were hollowed out pits of exhaustion. He looked like he hadn't slept in a decade. "Don't use the foam," the older me yelled. "The fire eats chemicals. Use the rule. Use the rule for the 4 a.m. rush." "What rule?" I shouted back, panic clawing at my throat. The list stopped at the rush. "The forgotten rule." Older me shrieked. The grate hissed against his back. The violet flames were reaching through the bars, licking at his uniform. "If the machine burns, you have to starve it. Cut the oxygen." "How?" "It's a grate." "The blanket." He pointed a trembling hand toward a pile of dark fabric in the corner of the aisle. "The lead blanket. From the X-ray load." I dropped the useless extinguisher and scrambled toward the pile. It was incredibly heavy, dense, and rubbery. I dragged it across the ash, my muscles burning. The coinless customer was standing by the burning machine. He wasn't helping. He was eating another Dorito. He watched with a mild, pixelated interest. "Move." I yelled at older me. "I can't," he wept. "I'm part of the fuel now. Just throw it." I heaved the lead blanket up. It weighed as much as a body. I threw it over the older me and the grate, sealing the machine. The roar of the fire instantly muffled. The machine shuddered violently, banging against the floor. I threw my body weight against the blanket, pressing it against the hot metal. "I'm sorry," I whispered, feeling the heat seep through the lead. "I'm sorry." Underneath the blanket, the screaming stopped. The banging slowed. Thump, thump, thump. Silence. I slid down to the floor, gasping for air. The ash smeared on my pants. I stared at the lead blanket. It was still. I had just killed myself. Or a version of myself. Or maybe it was just another hallucination designed to break me. I looked up at the coinless customer. He crumpled the empty Doritos bag and tossed it into the ash. He gave me a thumbs up. "Is that it?" I rasped. "Is the shift over?" He paused. The pixels on his face swirled slowly, turning a deep, bruising purple. He pointed behind me, not at the way we came, but at the machine directly across from the burnt-out one. Machine 403. It was silent. The glass was dark, but it was huge. The door was the size of a garage door, and there was no out-of-order sign. There was a sticky note attached to the glass. I pushed myself up, my legs trembling. I walked over to it. The handwriting on the note was elegant, flowing script. "Do not look at the spinning drum. But if the drum looks at you, do not blink. As soon as I read the words, the machine hummed to life. A click echoed through the void, louder than a gunshot. The interior of machine 403 lit up, not with a bulb, with bioluminescence. The water inside wasn't water. It was a thick, glowing green gel. And floating in the center of the gel, suspended perfectly in the middle of the drum, was a giant, unblinking eye. It was the size of a beach ball. The iris was a complex geometric pattern of gold and black. The pupil was a vertical slit that dilated as soon as the light turned on. It saw me. I felt the gaze physically. It felt like a hook entering my chest, behind the sternum, and pulling. Do not blink. My eyes began to water immediately. The light was searing. The drum began to spin. Slowly at first. The eye remained fixed in the center, rotating with the drum but somehow keeping its gaze locked perfectly on mine. Whoosh, whoosh. The sound was hypnotic. Look away, my brain screamed. Run. But I couldn't. The rule on the note was binding. If the drum looks at you. The coinless customer stepped into my peripheral vision. He wasn't looking at the eye. He was looking at his watch, a Casio calculator watch that I hadn't noticed before. He tapped the face of it. Time. I had to wait it out. The drum sped up. The green gel began to froth. The eye started to vibrate. Images began to flash in my mind. Not memories this time. Knowledge. I saw the layout of the laundromat. The real layout. It wasn't a building. It was an organism. The pipes were veins. The wires were nerves. The front door was a mouth. Henderson was a parasite living on the skin. I saw the customers. They weren't ghosts. They were echoes. Leftovers from previous digestions. I saw the 2025 coin in my pocket. It wasn't payment. It was a seed. My eyes burned. Tears streamed down my face, hot and stinging. The urge to blink was agonizing. It felt like needles were being pushed into my eyelids. Don't blink. Don't blink. The drum was a blur of green now. The eye was a stable point of madness in the center. Why me? I thought. The question projected loudly in my own skull. The eye widened. Because you were broke, a voice boomed in my head. It sounded like tectonic plates grinding together. Because you are desperate. Because the broken make the best batteries. My vision started to tunnel. Black spots danced at the edges. The coinless customer suddenly lunged. He didn't attack me. He didn't attack the machine. He grabbed the spray bottle of gum remover from my belt. He sprayed it directly onto the glass of machine 403. The cold liquid hit the warm glass. Crack. A spiderweb fracture exploded across the surface of the door, right over the pupil of the giant eye. The connection broke. I gasped, falling backward into the ash, squeezing my eyes shut. The relief was orgasmic. The pressure in my chest vanished. The machine let out a sound that was unmistakably a shriek of pain. The drum stopped violently. The lights cut out. Run, a synthesized voice buzzed. It was the coinless customer. He spoke. I scrambled up. Run where? Up, he said. He pointed into the infinite darkness above us. There's no ceiling. There is, he buzzed. Whatever is washing us is about to start the spin cycle. The ground beneath us lurched. The ash floor tilted. The entire aisle, the miles-long row of giant machines, began to rotate. We weren't in a hallway. We were inside a drum. A massive, world-sized drum. And the cycle was starting. The lint trap. I yelled, adrenaline overriding the terror. Where is the lint trap? In every dryer, there is an escape. The vent. The trap. The coinless customer grabbed my arm. His grip was surprisingly warm now. He pointed to a small, jagged hole in reality, hovering about 10 feet off the ground near aisle 399. It looked like a tear in a movie screen. Through it, I could see the fluorescent hum of the break room. Jump, he buzzed. The gravity shifted. The floor became the wall. We were sliding. I clawed at the ash, at the ridges of the machines. I looked back. The giant eye in machine 403 was bleeding green light through the cracks. The burnt-out hulk of machine 402 was smoking. We were falling sideways. I leaped. I threw myself at the tear in the air. I hit the floor hard. Cold linoleum. The smell of artificial lavender. I scrambled to my hands and knees, retching. I was back behind the counter. The coinless customer was gone. The endless aisles were gone. I looked at the clock. 5:59 a.m. The front doors were locked. The out-of-order sign was back on machine 9. The air was still. I was shaking so hard my teeth rattled. I pulled myself up using the counter. The sun. Through the glass front doors, I saw the sky turning a bruised purple, then a soft pink. Dawn. I checked my pocket. The 2025 coin was gone. In its place was a single, Cool Ranch Dorito crumb. A car pulled into the lot. A beat-up Ford Taurus. Mr. Henderson got out. He looked exactly the same as yesterday. Nervous. Twitchy. Alive. He walked to the door, unlocked it with his key, and stepped inside. He stopped when he saw me. He looked at the bags under my eyes. He looked at the ash smudged on my uniform. He sniffed the air. "Did you?" Henderson started, his voice trembling. "Did you survive the spin?" I stared at him. I thought about the face I saw in Machine 9. I thought about the voice of the giant eye. The broken make the best batteries. I walked around the counter. I grabbed the envelope of cash he had left on the desk. "I quit," I croaked. Henderson let out a breath, his shoulders sagging. "They always do. But..." He gestured to the envelope. "See you tomorrow, David." I said I quit. "You spent the coin," Henderson whispered. "The 2025 coin. You used it, didn't you?" I froze. I hadn't used it. I thought it was gone. I checked my other pocket. The coin was there. It was cold now. "You accepted the tender," Henderson said, a sad smile creeping onto his face. "You took the advance payment. You owe us a year, David. Read the fine print on the back of the coin." I pulled the coin out. I held it up to the rising sun. On the back, under the image of the burning eye, was an inscription in tiny, microscopic letters. Contract binding upon receipt. 1 year of service. No refunds. No returns. No escape. I looked at Henderson. "Go home, David," he said softly. "Get some sleep. Shift starts at midnight." I walked out the door. The morning air felt fake. The trees looked like cardboard cutouts. I got in my car. I looked in the rearview mirror. My reflection winked at me. I'm posting this now from the parking lot. I'm trapped. I can't leave town. Every road I take loops back to the spin cycle. I have to go back tonight. But I know the secret now. I know what the machines are washing. They aren't washing clothes. They are washing us. They're scrubbing away our reality, layer by layer, until we are just stains to be removed. If you're reading this, and you see a help wanted sign at a laundromat, run. Run until your legs break. And if you ever have to use a 24-hour laundromat, whatever you do, don't look at the spinning drum. That was 18 hours ago. You probably think I'm writing this from the safety of my apartment, maybe with a cup of coffee, shaking my head at the nightmare I just woke up from. You'd be wrong. I didn't make it home. I didn't even make it past the city limits. I drove. God, I drove for hours. I took the interstate. I took the back roads. I even tried driving across a cornfield. But every single route, no matter which compass direction I followed, eventually curved. The scenery would glitch, trees repeating like a bad texture pack in a video game. And then, suddenly, I'd be turning right back into the cracked asphalt lot of the spin cycle. My gas tank hit empty at exactly 11:55 p.m. My car coasted into the same spot I'd parked in the night before. The lights of the laundromat flickered on. The neon "Open 24 hours" sign buzzed, mocking me. Henderson wasn't there to greet me this time. The door was unlocked. On the counter, there was no envelope of cash. Just a fresh bottle of bleach, a box of latex gloves, and a single sticky note on the register. Shift 2. The difficult stains require soaking. Don't let the staff closet door latch behind you. That was 6 hours ago. Right now, I am wedged into a space the size of a coffin. I am sitting on a bucket of industrial sludge, my knees pulled up to my chin. The air in here is thick with the smell of wet mop heads and terror. I'm typing this on my phone with the brightness turned all the way down, praying that the light doesn't leak through the crack under the door. I am hiding in the staff closet, and I am not alone in here. But let me back up. I need to document this. If I die in this closet, or worse, if I get folded, I need people to know how the rules change on the second night. Because the protocol isn't static. It evolves. It gets smarter. The first 3 hours of night 2 were quiet. Suspiciously quiet. No meat washer. No ceiling crawler. Just the hum. The hum was louder tonight, aggressive. It felt like the building was grinding its teeth. At 3 a.m., things went wrong. I was sweeping R1, trying to ignore the way the shadows stretched toward me when I heard the sound. Scree. It sounded like metal being dragged across tile. I looked up. Standing by the entrance wasn't a customer. It was an object. It was an ironing board, but it was made of bone. The legs were long, sharpened femurs. The flat board was a stretched canvas of human skin, pale and taut, and it was moving on its own, scuttling like a crab, dragging its sharp bone legs across the linoleum. And behind it walked the matron. She was huge. She took up half the aisle. She looked like a woman made entirely of steam and hot iron. She had no solid form, just a billowing, white cloud of scalding vapor shaped like a 1950s housewife, complete with a sizzling apron. Where her hand should have been, there were heavy, black iron presses. She didn't have a face, just a vent where steam shrieked out. Hiss. Wrinkles, the steam voice hissed. So many wrinkles. I froze. There was no rule for the matron on the original list. She drifted toward the row of plastic chairs. She reached out with a steaming iron hand and touched a plastic chair. SSSSZT. The plastic melted instantly. But she didn't stop there. She pressed down. She smoothed it. She flattened the chair until it was a two-dimensional smear on the floor. Smooth, she sighed. Perfect. Then she turned toward me. The steam swirled where her eyes should be. Boy, she hissed. Your shirt. It is unkempt. I looked down at my flannel. It was wrinkled from sleeping in the car. Your skin, she continued, gliding closer. It hangs loose. It needs pressing. I dropped the broom. I ran. I vaulted over the counter. The matron let out a shriek like a tea kettle exploding. The bone ironing board scuttled after me, snapping its legs. I didn't have a weapon. I didn't have a coin. I saw the door to the staff closet behind the folding table. Henderson's note flashed in my mind. Don't let the staff closet door latch behind you. I didn't care. I needed a wall between me and the steam. I threw the door open, dove inside, and slammed it shut. I heard the lock engage. Click. I scrambled back into the darkness, knocking over mop handles and buckets. Bang. Something heavy hit the door from the outside. The wood splintered but held. Thus, hot steam blasted through the gap underneath the door. I scrambled up onto a shelf, choking back a cough. The steam curled in the air, searching, tasting the dark. Come out, the matron hissed. Let me make you tidy. That was 2 hours ago. She hasn't left. Every few minutes, she bangs on the door. Every few minutes, she slides a piece of paper under the door. They aren't blank papers. They are diagrams. Diagrams of how to fold a human body. Step 1, break the collarbone. Step 2, collapse the ribcage. Step 3, flatten. So here I am, trapped. The closet is roughly 3 feet wide and 4 feet deep. It's crammed with supplies that don't look right. There's a gallon jug labeled bone softener, lavender scented. There's a stack of towels that are warm to the touch and pulse like they have a heartbeat. And there is another list. Of course there is. Henderson loves his paperwork. It's taped to the inside of the door, right at eye level. It's written on a napkin in red crayon. Emergency protocol, the closet. 1, occupancy limit. The closet is rated for one living human. If you hear breathing that isn't yours, do not turn on the light. Do not acknowledge it. It is the previous shift manager. He is shy. 2, the door gap. Do not block the gap under the door. The things outside need to see that you are hiding. It excites them. If you block the view, they will get bored and simply burn the closet down. 3, the drain. There is a floor drain in the corner. If black hair starts growing out of it, pour bleach on it immediately. If the hair wraps around your ankle, do not pull. Sing to it. It likes lullabies. 4. The shelf. Do not touch the jar of teeth on the top shelf. Those are for the IRS. 5. Time dilation. Time moves differently in the closet. 10 minutes in here is an hour out there. Or maybe it's the reverse. Watch your fingernails. If they start growing visibly, exit the closet immediately, regardless of what is waiting outside. You do not want to die of old age in the dark. 6. The exit strategy. If the door is blocked or the entity outside refuses to leave, there is a hatch in the ceiling. It leads to the ventilation system. The vents are safe from the matron, but they are the domain of the lint spiders. Choose your poison. I finished reading the list and immediately looked at my fingernails. They looked normal. For now. Then I heard it. Who? Breathing. It was wet, rattling, and it was coming from the floor, right next to the bucket I was sitting on. Rule 1. If you hear breathing that isn't yours, do not turn on the light. I froze. I slowly lifted my phone, careful not to illuminate the floor. The breathing hitched. Hoo-woo. Coo. It sounded like someone with a punctured lung. Hello, a voice whispered. It was barely audible. Is it Tuesday yet? I bit my lips so hard I tasted copper. Do not acknowledge it. I've been in here since the '99 blizzard, the voice wheezed. Did the stain come out? Henderson said the blood would wash out. I squeezed my eyes shut. I focused on the door, on the matron outside. Bang! The door shook again. The matron was getting impatient. Open, she screeched. I have the starch ready. I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. Or rather, between a steam demon and a ghost janitor. I need to make a move. My phone battery is at 14%. Wait. The breathing stopped. Something is moving in the corner. I can hear the rustle of a uniform. You're ignoring me, the voice whispered. It sounded closer now. Right by my ear. That's rude. Henderson hates rude employees. I felt a cold, clammy hand brush against my ankle. I kicked out instinctively. My foot connected with something soft and wet, like rotten fruit. Oh, the voice hissed. Then, the flashlight on my phone flickered. It wasn't me. I didn't touch the screen. The light flared to 100% brightness. I looked down. Crouched in the corner, wedged between the mops and the chemical jugs, was a man. Or what used to be a man. He was wearing a Spin Cycle polo that was shredded. His skin was grey and translucent, pulled tight over his skeleton. He had no eyes, just empty sockets filled with lint. He was grinning at me. You turned on the light, he whispered, pointing a skeletal finger at the phone. You broke rule number 1. The air in the closet dropped 20 degrees. Frost began to form on the chemical jugs. Now, the thing hissed, uncoiling its limbs. It stood up. It was impossibly tall, folding in on itself to fit in the cramped space. Now we have to share the air. It lunged. I didn't think. I panicked. I grabbed the jug of bone softener and smashed it over the thing's head. The plastic jug exploded. Purple liquid drenched the creature. It screamed. Not a human scream. It sounded like tearing metal. The liquid hissed as it hit the grey skin. The creature crumpled, its bones dissolving instantly. It collapsed into a pile of wet, grey slurry on the floor, twitching. I stood there, panting, covered in lavender-scented chemical slime. Bang! The door buckled inward. A dent appeared in the wood. The matron was breaking through. I looked up. The ceiling hatch. Rule 6. The vents are the domain of the lint spiders. I looked at the dissolving puddle of the previous manager. I looked at the door, which was starting to smoke as the matron pressed her iron hands against it. I chose the spiders. I climbed up the shelving unit, my sneakers slipping on slime. I punched the ceiling tile. It moved. I shoved it aside and hauled myself up into the crawl space just as the closet door exploded inward. A blast of scalding steam filled the closet below. Gone. The matron shrieked. Where is the wrinkle? I lay flat in the dark, dusty ventilation shaft, holding my breath. The metal was cold against my stomach. It was quiet up here. Too quiet. I turned on my phone flashlight again. The beam cut through the dust. The vent shaft stretched out in 2 directions. Left and right. To the left, the shaft was clean, metallic, and echoed with the sound of the running machines. To the right, The shaft was clogged. Thick, grey webs hung from the ceiling. But they weren't spider webs. They were made of lint. Clumps of hair, dust, and dry dryer sheets woven into intricate, sticky tunnels. And in the center of the web, blocking the path, was a pair of jeans. Just a pair of Levi's, suspended in the web. Then the jeans moved. They twitched. The legs inflated. Not with flesh, but with legs. Many legs. A lint spider. It was using the discarded clothing as a shell. The denim stretched as 8 long, fuzzy limbs comprised of compressed dust and hair burst out of the pant legs. It didn't have eyes. It sensed vibration. I froze. I'm writing this now from the intersection of the vents. Below me, the matron is destroying the staff closet. To my right, a spider wearing pants is waiting for me to move. To my left, I hear singing. It's coming from the vents over the dryers. It sounds like a choir. But the words, "Round and round the souls do go, where they stop, the spin will know." I have to keep moving. I can't go back down. I'm going left, toward the singing. But before I go, I need to tell you something. I found something in the closet before I climbed out. It was in the previous manager's pocket, before he dissolved. It was a key card. A black plastic card with no magnetic strip, just a gold symbol stamped on it. The same symbol that was on the eye in the machine. And on the back of the card, someone scratched a message with a knife. Basement level. The dry cleaning. Do not let them press you. There is no basement in the spin cycle. I've checked the blueprints. I've checked the exterior. It's a slab foundation. But if there's a keycard, there's a door. And if there's a door, there's a way out. Or a way deeper in. The spider is moving. It's clicking its mandibles. It sounds like zippers being pulled up and down quickly. Zip, zip, zip. I'm crawling left. If the stream cuts out, it's because the lint spiders caught me. If they catch you, they don't eat you. They weave you into the nest. You become part of the clog. I don't want to be a clog. Wait. I see a grate up ahead. I can see down into the main room. Oh God. The matron isn't alone anymore. The 4 a.m. rush has started early. And this time, the walls aren't expanding. They are contracting. The laundromat is shrinking. The rows of machines are sliding closer together, crushing the chairs, crushing the tables. The room is becoming a trash compactor. And standing in the center, untouched by the moving machines, is the smiling man. He's looking up. He's looking right at the vent grate. He's looking at me. He's holding a microphone. Cleaning cycle complete. His voice booms through the vents, deafening me. Commencing tumble dry. The vent shaft just shook. The air is getting hot. Unbearably hot. They turned the heat on. They're trying to cook me out. I have to find the basement. I have to find the door. I'm crawling fast now. The metal is searing my hands. The lint spider is shrieking behind me. It's burning. The smell of burning hair is everywhere. I see a service ladder ahead. It goes down, deep down, past the floor level. It goes into the dark. I'm dropping my phone. I can't carry it and climb. This is it. If you go to the laundromat, check the dryers. Check the lint traps. If you find a phone, destroy it. Don't read the files. And for the love of God, wash your clothes at home. The heat. It's melting my shoes. I'm jumping. I didn't die. Obviously. If I were dead, I wouldn't be typing this on a cracked phone screen with fingers that look like boiled sausages. But I'm not sure I'm entirely alive either. I think a part of me, maybe the part that used to enjoy the smell of fresh linen or the warmth of a dryer, died in that vent shaft. I'm sitting in my car. The engine is off. The sun is up. It's a beautiful, golden morning. The birds are singing. And I am screaming on the inside. Let me tell you what is in the basement. Let me tell you, so you never, ever look for the keycard. When I jumped from the ladder, I didn't hit the floor. The shaft went down deeper than the foundation of the building should allow. The air grew cold, intensely, chemically cold. The heat of the tumble-dry cycle above vanished, replaced by a stinging chill that smelled of perchloroethylene and formaldehyde. I landed on a conveyor belt. It was moving slowly, humming with a vibration that rattled my teeth. The room, if you can call it a room, was vast. It looked like a warehouse, illuminated by buzzing, yellow sodium lights. And everywhere, as far as the eye could see, were rails. Moving dry cleaning rails. Hanging from the rails were the plastic bags. You know the ones. The clear, thin plastic covers they put over your suits. But there were no suits inside. They were people. Hundreds of them. Rows and rows of people, pressed flat. And I mean flat. Two-dimensional. Like cardboard cutouts made of flesh. They were perfectly preserved, their eyes open and staring, their mouths pressed into thin lines. They slid along the rails, the metal hangers hooked into the skin of their napes. Zip, zip, zip. The conveyor moved them along. I scrambled off the belt, my melted sneakers skidding on the polished concrete. I held the keycard I'd stolen from the closet like a shield. Base level, a voice announced over a loudspeaker. It wasn't the smiling man. It was a soft, feminine voice, like a GPS navigation system. Processing complete. Folding station active. I saw a station ahead. A massive, hydraulic press. The conveyor was feeding the flat people into it. The press would come down, wham, and fold them into neat squares. Then a robotic arm would stack them onto a wooden pallet. A pallet of people. Ready for shipping. I gagged, vomiting bile onto the floor. The smell was overpowering. It was the smell of clean. But not natural clean. It was the smell of sterility. The absence of life. I heard heavy footsteps behind me. I turned. Standing at the bottom of the ladder I had just jumped from was a figure. He was wearing a hazard suit made of the same yellow material as the lady in yellow's raincoat. He held a spray gun connected to a tank on his back. He pointed the nozzle at me. "You are not flat," the figure muffled through his mask. "You are wrinkled." He pulled the trigger. A jet of clear fluid shot out. It hit the concrete inches from my foot. Where the liquid touched the floor, the concrete smoothed. The texture vanished. It became perfectly flat, glossy glass. If that hit me, I wouldn't just dissolve. I would be ironed out of existence. I ran. I ran through the rows of hanging bodies, dodging the plastic bags. I saw faces I recognized from missing persons posters. I saw the guy who used to work the counter at the gas station down the road. I saw Sarah. She was hanging near the end of row 12. She looked peaceful. Flat, but peaceful. She had a tag stapled to her ear. Delicate cycle. Do not bleach. Stop, the hazard suit yelled. You are disrupting the inventory. I saw a door at the far end of the warehouse. It was marked with a green exit sign, but beneath the word exit, someone had scrawled delivery chute. I didn't care. I swiped the black keycard against the reader. Beep. The door hissed open. I threw myself inside just as a stream of the flattening fluid splashed against the doorframe. I fell. Again. But this time, I wasn't falling into darkness. I was sliding. It was a metal chute, steep and slick with oil. I slid for what felt like miles, spiraling upward, the pressure in my ears popping. Then, light. Blinding, white light. I shot out of the end of the chute and landed on something soft and wet. Garbage. I was in the dumpster behind the spin cycle. I gasped for air, inhaling the stench of rotting food and wet cardboard. It was the most beautiful smell I have ever experienced. It smelled real. It smelled like decay, which meant it smelled like life. I clawed my way out of the dumpster, falling onto the asphalt of the parking lot. I looked up. The sun was cresting over the horizon. A blinding, burning eye of fire that banished the shadows. The sky was a bruised purple, healing into blue. The laundromat building looked normal. The brick was solid. The windows were intact. The open 24 hours sign was flickering innocently in the daylight. I checked my watch. 6:01 a.m. I lay there on the asphalt for a long time, just breathing. My clothes were shredded. My shoes were fused lumps of rubber. My skin was red and raw, smelling faintly of lavender and ozone. I heard footsteps, crunching on gravel. I flinched, curling into a ball. Rough shift. I looked up. It was Henderson. He was holding 2 cups of coffee. He looked tired. More tired than usual. He was wearing a fresh shirt, but I could see the collar of his undershirt was stained with something dark. He extended a cup to me. "Black," he said. "No sugar." Sugar attracts the ants. I stared at him. The basement, I croaked. The dry cleaning. Henderson flinched. His eyes darted to the dumpster I had just crawled out of. We don't talk about the dry cleaning, David. That's management level stuff. I saw them, I whispered. I saw the people. Inventory, Henderson corrected softly. He crouched down, placing the coffee on the ground near my head. Just inventory. Look, David. You made it. You clocked out. The sun is up. I quit, I said. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't work. I'm done. I'm leaving. Henderson sighed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a cigarette. He lit it with a shaky hand. You can't quit, kid. You touched the coin. You saw the eye. And now. He gestured to the dumpster. Now you've been through the chute. You're part of the circulation. I'll drive, I said. I'll just keep driving. You tried that last night, Henderson said. How did that work out? I didn't answer. I knew how it worked out. All roads lead to the spin. Go home, Henderson said. Go to your apartment. It's safe during the day. The sunlight, it keeps them solid, keeps them in the machines. Just don't come back until midnight. He stood up and walked toward the back door of the laundromat. Wait, I called out. He stopped. Why? I asked. Why does this place exist? What is it feeding? Henderson looked at the rising sun, squinting. It's a laundromat, David, he said. It cleans things. The world is dirty. History is dirty. Someone has to wash out the stains. He went inside. The door clicked shut. I dragged myself to my car. I drove home. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't turn on the radio. I got into my apartment 10 minutes ago. I stripped off my clothes and threw them in the trash. I'm not washing them. I'm never washing clothes again. I stepped into the shower to wash the dumpster slime and the chemical smell off my skin. That's when I saw it. On my chest. Right over my heart. A crease. A sharp, unnatural crease in my skin, like I had been ironed. And below it, a stamp in blue ink that won't scrub off. Property of Spin Cycle. Do not remove. I'm exhausted. My eyes feel like they're filled with sand. But I have to write this down. I have to update the rules. Because if I have to go back tonight, and I know I do, the pull in my chest is already starting. I need to be ready. And you need to be warned. The protocol Henderson gave me was for the night shift. It was incomplete. Here are the rules for the morning after. Survivor's protocol, the daylight hours. 1. The detergent smell. You will smell it for hours after your shift. It smells like artificial lavender and burnt hair. If the smell suddenly changes to unscented, hold your breath. It means the smiling man has followed you home. He travels through scent. 2. Sunlight. Stay in the light. The things from the spin cycle hate UV radiation. Keep your curtains open. If a shadow in your room starts to elongate or detach from the object casting it, shine a flashlight on it immediately. 3. Laundry. Do not do laundry in your own home. Do not go near a washing machine. If you hear your home machine start running when it's unplugged, leave the house. Do not investigate. It is trying to sync with the network. 4. The crease. Check your body. If you find a crease in your skin that wasn't there before, do not try to iron it out. Do not massage it. It is a structural weak point. If you press on it, you might fold. 5. Sleep. You will need to sleep. But be careful. If you dream of a spinning drum or a giant eye, wake yourself up. Pinch yourself. Scream. Just wake up. If you finish the dream, you might wake up in the basement, hanging on a rail. 6. The call. If your phone rings and the caller ID says unknown or displays a date from the future, like 2025, answer it. It's the coinless customer. He doesn't speak, but the static helps synchronize your brain to reality. It stops the hallucinations. I'm going to try to sleep now. I have to go back at midnight. I have a plan for tonight. Henderson said the machines wash out the stains of history. He said we are just inventory. But inventory can be dangerous. Inventory can be flammable. I stopped at the hardware store on the way home. I bought 5 gallons of industrial paint thinner, a box of rags, and a flare gun. They want to clean the world? Fine. I'm going to help them. I'm going to start a heavy-duty cycle of my own. If I don't post by 7 a.m. tomorrow, assume I've been folded. Assume I'm hanging in a plastic bag in the dark, waiting to be shipped. And please, check your pockets before you do your laundry. You never know what you might find.